Hello, everyone. On this Monday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to our Go Lumio webinar series, where we are providing continuous opportunities, highlighting how Lumio can provide a fluid workflow that benefits both teachers and students. We will show you how to create lessons and activities focused on classroom instructional strategies. My name is Michelle Conway Gray, and I'm a professional development specialist from New Jersey. This week's webinar, Why Google and Lumio Enhancing Your Digital Classroom Experience, features Michelle Grinberg, or Mish we like to call her, a professional development specialist from Arizona. We encourage participation. If you have any questions, please ask those questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we will either integrate them into the flow or hold them to be answered at the end during our Q&A period. We will be sharing resources from today's webinar in the chat. Also, for participating today, a certificate will be provided after you complete a brief survey. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Mish so that we can dive into today's webinar, Why Google and Lumio Enhancing Your Digital Classroom Experience.
Thanks, Michelle. What a great kickoff here. Let's go on and get started. So before we do here, I would love for everyone to join into my Lumio lesson because I have so many different activities to show you today, and I'd love for everyone to participate. So you're going to go to either the link that Michelle just put into the chat box that directly gets you right into my class, or you can just open up a window on your browser, go to hellosmart.com. You'll click Join as Guest, and then it's going to ask you for my class ID, and my code is 181461. And if this is your first time with Lumio, we love Lumio because it lets students actively participate in your lesson. So as soon as you're logged in here, you'll see my screen on yours, and then soon we'll get to some interactive pieces that you can engage with as well. So let's just take a second to get logged in. Looks like I've got 2 of you logged in, 3 of you logged in. I'm going to wait just another minute here, make sure everyone can actively participate with us because I have some potentially spooky activities for us to participate in. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is come over to my class management button over here, and I'm going to toggle on Show Class ID, and you'll now see that my ID lives right at the bottom of our screen here. Now, just as a reminder that the direct join link is still in our Zoom chat, or you can look right on my screen here and you'll see that my code is 181461 that you'll put in if you just go to hellosmart.com. All right, for any of us that might be brand new to Lumio, Lumio is a super exciting tool that we love to use because as teachers, we're super busy and we also navigate through so many different resources. We go to play games online, we watch YouTube videos, we grab virtual manipulatives, and it's a lot of tabs to keep track of as a teacher. Imagine yourself in your classroom up at the front of the room, whether you've got a smart board, a different interactive display, a projector, and it's a lot of different tabs, right? So the idea of Lumio is you're going to start with all the really great content you have for today, starting with a Google Slides lesson, something that's just kind of a lot of teacher talk. Bring it right into Lumio and bring in a ton of different interactive pieces. So we've got YouTube that comes in ad-free. You can turn any page into an activity like a individual handout or a whole class whiteboard. We can do games, shout it outs, response. We have simulations, so many different things. And I'll be able to show you a few of those during our time here together today. All right, so what I've done here, since we're talking about how to take your Google lessons and make them super interactive for your students, is I have this parts of speech lesson that I created in Google with a little help from Canva, because Canva helps me get my little creative juices flowing. So this is just a lesson that I might have brought up previously, just from Google Slides, maybe again, right up at my front of room display. And it was just a lot of teacher talk. So let's see how I can kind of take this teacher talk moments and make them engaging for my students and also be able to check for understanding and get my students to collaborate with each other. All right. And I did have to make it Halloween themed for the spookies coming up next week. Just had to keep it fun. All right, so parts of speech, the first thing that we're going to take a look at is adjectives. So as a teacher, again, this is really my teacher talk slide from Google. I'm telling them that here is one of the parts of speech. It's an adjective, telling them their definition. It describes or modifies a noun. Of course, I had to make my examples spooky as well. So spooky, creepy, slimy. And this is a moment where I might just kind of have my students listen, and I might give them different examples like the skeleton on the screen. I'll have them maybe raise their hand to be able to shout out some adjectives that they can brainstorm. But then I think about my students and maybe raising their hand like my skeleton here isn't really their thing. Maybe they're a student that has an IEP, maybe they're learning English, or maybe they're shy or just trying to look cool in front of their other skeleton friends. And I want to give them a different entry point to participate in this brainstorm here. So as I go on to my next slide, I took a Google slide and now I made it interactive, right? I brought it into Lumio and I took one of our pre-made graphic organizers. I put it right onto my screen here and we're going to brainstorm some different adjectives. So what I'll do here is come over to my people management tool right here and convert it into a whole class whiteboard. I can't set it in advance to be a whole class whiteboard, or I like to do it on the fly like I did just now because I always have that group of students where I really want to make sure that they get all of their instructions before I release them to do an activity. So on your screen now, you'll be able to interact with my page. On the left side of your screen, you'll have a toolbar. If you don't see all these different options, you might just see 3 dots. If you click on those 3 dots, your toolbar will appear. So let's take a second to brainstorm some adjectives. And an extra challenge here is, can you make them spooky themed? So you'll be able to either grab your writing tool and you can write on my screen. You can click on the A, then click on the screen to get a text box. A few different ways for you to respond. One of my new favorite things that you can do to make learning more accessible, and it's kind of hiding. If you go right into this button here that has a heart, a plus, an image, and a circle, we call that button the gallery. If you click on the gallery and you click on this bottom option, the microphone, now another way that students can respond is via recording audio. So if your students are not ready to type, they can click on this record audio button and they'll be able to submit their response that way. Ooh, someone put spine chilling, dark, and haunting. These are some really good. Oh my gosh, someone put morbid on here. Love it. So from a whole class whiteboard, a few things that I really love is that I can always click on someone's contribution and see who it belongs to. So spine chilling, let's see. I'm going to click on that one here. And that one was Marit. Hey, Marit, thanks for your contribution. And what I can do, I'm going to come back over to my gallery. Click on this top one. There's stickers, kind of like little emojis. And I'm going to grab a little star because I think that was a really fun one. And maybe that was one that I was also thinking about. So I'm going to give a little reaction here. One other thing that I can do from a whole class whiteboard is if my students are maybe getting a little silly and I need to get the attention back on me, at the top right of my teacher screen, I can toggle off editing and you'll see that now on your side, you cannot touch, you can just take a look. I'm going to turn the editing back on here. Thanks everyone for participating in my little adjective brainstorming web. So again, took a Google slide where I was really just doing some teacher talk, telling them different examples or asking them to raise their hand. And now I've given them a new way to participate. And also now that I'm doing this, all of our contributions are saving right in this file. We thought of some really good ones: haunting, eerie, ghostly, morbid, creepy. These are fun, terrifying. All right, coming back to my Google slide here, I have nouns. So we're going to talk about nouns that's a person, place, thing, or idea. Here's my Halloween themed one: a ghost, a pumpkin, haunted house, or candy. Again, and ask my students to raise their hand as a way for me to do a little check for understanding of, do they know what a noun is? Can they think of some good ideas? But thinking about how I want to lumify this Google lesson and make it a little bit more interesting, maybe gamify my learning, What I've done in the next page here is we have in Lumio 12 different games and activities, and this one here is called a super sort. So from the teacher's screen, I can model my activity. And here, maybe after we talked about nouns, maybe I also told them about proper nouns, told them the difference. And I want to see that they can, I'm going to stop and do a check for understanding and see that they can differentiate the two. You'll see that if you get a right answer, it disappears. If you get the wrong one, it shoots it back. All right, now let's see what happens when I go to view progress. Let's see how everyone is doing. So from this screen, I can see that 3 of you are in progress, 2 haven't started yet. So as a teacher, I don't have to stand here and say, are you done? Are you done? I get that data right over here. What I can also do, and of course I would do this from my own computer when I'm not in the middle of teaching, but I have this button right here that says student progress. If I click on show student progress, it's always going to give me that warning. Hey, you're about to show student names and scores. You sure you want to continue? I'm going to open up here and I can see that everyone is busy at work. I'm going to click on Pamela's here, if that's okay. And over here, I'll be able to see how Pamela's doing. Now, what I really like is, let's just imagine that Pamela maybe got a few of these answers incorrect. It would tell me and itemize for me when she got some incorrect answers. And on her side, she'd be able to restart the activity, to reset it and keep practicing, because that repetition is really good. But on my screen, I get the data for her first attempt. I can also see how much time spent, individually for this student and then for the class average, as well as the score. So for myself as a teacher, I'm not only checking my students, checking them for understanding, but I'm also gauging a reflection for myself. Am I ready to move on in my lesson, or do I need to reteach this? All right. Coming back to my Google slide lesson here. So we talked about adjectives, and then we brought an interactive piece. We got some nouns and we gamified it a little bit. And now we're talking about verbs. So verbs express an action or a being, and that can be howl, hunt, creep, brew, or shriek. Some fun different Halloween themed verbs. And now I'm ready for my students to participate. I want to make this more into an ELA activity here and get some reading going. So as I go to my next page here, I have some different sentences, and I want my students to identify the verbs in those sentences. But I also want to think about how I can make this lesson more accessible for my students. So I took something from Google, again, that was just teacher talk. And now not only am I making it an interactive activity for my students, I'm also making it a little bit more accessible for them too. So there's different ways that they can access this. They can go to Immersive Reader, which I think it might have toggled off on me, which I'd have to go toggle back on, and I can show you guys how to do that. But they'd be able to click on Immersive Reader and have these sentences read out loud to them. And what's really cool about Immersive Reader is it can also highlight different parts of speech. After they've accessed their Immersive Reader, I also have my little line here, infinitely cloned. So after they read those, they can come right over and underline those. So all you can do on your screen right now is just take a look at it. So I'm going to come back over to my class management tool here, and I'm going to make it into an individual handout. And so now on your screen, you each get your own copy to be able to participate in this activity. And I can see that Jill has already gotten started. And one thing that I really like about doing an individual activity is you'll notice on the top right of your screen, you have a done button. And one way that I really like to use that done button, other than just saying, hey, Ms. G, I'm done, is I'll tell them, if you're feeling brave and I can show your work on the big screen today, go ahead and hit that done button, because then what'll happen on my side is I'll get a little green check mark. So I can ask one of you to go ahead and hit that done button. It'll let me know that you're feeling brave and I can show your work on the big screen today. Thanks, Pamela. I'm going to go ahead and hit hers because she gave me that green check mark. And then I can go in and see how Pamela's doing. So Pamela used our infinitely cloned line over here and underlined all the verbs in these sentences. And of course, again, had to keep up my little Halloween theme here. So what I can do in individual handout is come right back to my gallery. And I'm going to grab, let's do an A+, because it looks like Pamela did a great job. And this sticker or any feedback that I might type on the screen, just Pamela would see. So again, taking something that was just a teacher talk Google slide, this could have been part of it, We could have done this out loud together. We could have come up to the screen, but now I've given them the opportunity to do so independently, really getting that practice in and then getting an individual feedback as well, which I can later go take a look at and see if there's any students that maybe I missed if we did this as a verbal discussion. I might have missed if someone was still struggling. All right. Can we handle a couple more examples? And then I'm going to go in and show you all how I built some of these activities. So next I've got an adverb. Michelle's excited. Next I've got an adverb. So an adverb describes how, when, or where something happens. And it ends in ly. So eerily, creepily, chillingly, silently. I don't know. Halloween themed adverbs are so fun. I had so much fun thinking of all these examples last night with a little help from ChatGPT. But because it was late on a Sunday night, my brain was like, what are you doing trying to brainstorm some Halloween themed adverbs? So again, here is my Google slide that I took. And now let's think about how I can make it interactive. So a little fill in the blank activity. Fill in the blank is another one of our 12 games or activities. And all my students have to do here is just bring these in. And this one's a little tricky. Let's see if we can do it. The haunted house stood ominously at the end of the dark street. The vampire silently crept up the stairs, making no sound. The ghost, I'm going to say eerily floated across. I made this last night and I already don't remember which one goes with which. Let's see. I have it to be graded. Let's click on check answers. Oh, I guess I remembered correctly. So this is really fun. Again, you can see here that you can reset your activity because repetition is really great for our students. So they can review or they can reset. And if they got some wrong, there's different ways for them to keep going. One way that I really didn't think about using a fill in the blank, by the way, is for math. I always think back of when I was teaching and thinking about being a kindergarten teacher and always sitting with one of my teacher friends that was an 8th grade math teacher. And we always were like, this is really great PD, but how can I apply this to my learning? And so I always think about fill in the blank as one of those examples, because as a kindergarten teacher, I was like, how would I use this with my little ones that can't read yet? And my friend always thought about how do I use a fill in the blank for math? So with the kindergarten students, you can do maybe missing parts of the alphabet. Or with an 8th grade math teacher, missing parts of a formula or sequencing numbers or patterns. There's so many different ways you can use a fill in the blank other than just a word missing from a sentence. All right, this is my last example, and then we're going to go into building some of these activities. So interjections, a word or phrase to show emotion. So my Halloween examples, boo, ah, ew, hiss. ChatGPT helped me with this one too, because all I could think of was boo last night. All right, so actually, this was an idea that I had from another parts of speech lesson within the Lumio library, which I'm going to show you where I kind of got this idea from, and I made it my own. So what I've done here, this is another individual handout, so you each have the opportunity to practice on your own, but I can come right over to my teacher handout. And we can practice from here as well. So let's see. Drag and drop the interjections into the pumpkin basket. It's trick-or-treating here for some interjections. So eek, boo, ah, ew, and I think yikes could fit into here too. So from here, again, I can model my activity, but then I can drop my teacher activity down and then take a look at how my students are doing. And just as a reminder, if you're feeling comfortable with me sharing your work on the big screen, you can hit that done button. Thanks, Pamela. You are really helpful today. And you're letting me know that I can open yours up. And there is Pamela. This activity is something that I just created. So it's not going to be self-checking, but it's fun because I was able to really customize it and make it fun and themed for my lesson here. All I did, and I'll show you how I did it, was I grabbed a couple of blank candies and I grouped it with some text. We'll take a look at how to build it. And so I'll know that she did a great job because some of those answers that don't quite fit are still left over. We did not trick or treat for those. I'm going to drop this down here. Let's see how Marit did. Awesome. And just as a reminder, I can write some feedback or I can grab a sticker and let Marit know that I've acknowledged her work. All right, who is ready to take a look at how I built some of these activities? All right. So if you're following along, this is kind of where I want you to choose your own adventure. You can either stay on my Lumio screen here logged in as a teacher, you can or as a student, you can come over to Zoom and pay attention there. Or if you're the kind of learner where you really want to follow along and do as I do, go ahead and open up golumio.com, and Michelle maybe can put that link in the chat for you. And you'll log in as a teacher. Again, this is your preference, whatever kind of learner you are, to see if you'd like to follow along as I do it, as you can do what I do. So I'm going to end my lesson here. So once you are logged into Lumio, one really important step as we're thinking about going from Google to Lumio is making sure that it's easy for us to import those files. So I'm going to just stop here for just a second in case anyone is getting logged in. And then we're going to do a little housekeeping step that's super important. Right. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to come up to the top right of your screen. Mine is my picture, yours might be yours, or it might be your initials, your little icon. You're going to click on it, and there's a button that should say Google Drive integration. Now, if yours says enable, go ahead and hit that button. It takes about a minute, let it process through. If yours says disable, you're all set, just leave it. And usually I get a question like, oh my gosh, in my Google Drive, I have so much information in there. Is Lumio gonna get access to my whole Google Drive? No, and I'll tell you why. Because once you start importing them, you choose what comes into Lumio. This is just kind of like a gateway, if you will. You're setting up your gateway, but not all your things are not coming right into Lumio. So don't worry about any of those things that might be in your drive. So once you've enabled it, you are all set to go. So I'm going to come right over here to my new button. And when I hit new, the top left corner, I have an option that says import resource. And there is a button right here for Google Drive. And you'll notice that this Google Drive button exists twice. It's right up here, but there's also one down here. And here's when you're going to think about using both of those options. The top one is if you're just bringing in something from Google Drive, like your Google Slides, and you don't need to change anything. The Google Slides are perfect as they are. You don't need to edit anything. None of those pieces are movable. You'll use that top option. The bottom option is going to be really great if you need to edit any text, if you have any pieces that are meant to be movable, like if you try to create a game right within Google, or if you want to use Immersive Reader, you're going to want to use the editable button. All right, so I'm going to come right into here to Google Drive, and here's where you'll choose, where you'll tell Google what's going to come into Lumio. So here is my parts of speech lesson that we went over today. So I'm going to click right on my parts of speech. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to let it load in here. Let's just take a second. Do I need like my hold music? What's everyone's favorite hold song? One of my favorite Super Bowl commercials a couple of years ago, I think it was Miles Teller. Him and his wife made a commercial like dancing to all the different types of hold songs. So, okay, now that that's loaded, my ramble's over. Here are all of those slides that I had right within my Google Drive in this Google Slides file. What you'll notice is what I can do is select or unselect all. So maybe if I only wanted to bring in a few of these, or if I wanted to bring in all of them, I'll go ahead and select all, and then I'll bring it in. This will take another second. While that's loading, can you tell me in the chat, what is everyone dressing up for for Halloween this year? Anyone doing anything fun? What are you dressing up as for Halloween? Can anyone tell me in the chat? All right, so now that that is loaded in here, here are all of my Google Slides. So now we can go ahead and get started with making some. Oh, Michelle's cousins are dressing up as Bluey and Friends. That's so fun. I hear actually I was doing a little trivia for our Lumio Live tomorrow, which we're going to showcase the monster quiz, and it might be some Halloween trivia. And Bluey, I think, if I'm not mistaken from my research over the weekend as well, Bluey is the most popular kids costume this year for Halloween. I think it's at the top of the charts. Oh, Mart's going to be carving pumpkins with the students. How fun. That's a messy activity to do with a bunch of kids in one classroom, but go you. I love that. You're so brave. All right, so let's take a look. So here are all of these different parts of speech, right? So I first want to come over to my nouns because that's when we built that super sort activity. So now that I'm here, I brought in my really like teacher talk slides. I'm going to click right on here. I know, Grace, no worries. I know that not all schools celebrate Halloween. I'm just doing a Halloween theme here, but there's so many different ways. And actually, one of the trivia questions I also was taking a look at over the weekend was there's different holidays around the world that are similar to Halloween and that they also dress up for different holidays. So there's a German holiday. I think we saw one that was there's one in Mexico. I think there was one in Sweden. There's so many different holidays. So kind of doing like Halloween-ish holidays around the world. So there's different ways to do it and it's super fun. All right, so I'm going to hit my plus button here, and here is now where I can bring in different things to make my Google Slides lesson really interactive. So my go-to is always bringing in a game to gamify learning for my students and do a little check for understanding. So I'm going to click on game-based activities. And I'm going to scroll down here, and right here is my super sort. That's the one that I had you guys do. All right, so all I need to do now is pick some categories. So in my game that we did together was nouns and proper nouns. And you'll see here that you can either do text or image. And for any of my teachers that might be primary teachers, or maybe you're working with some students that could have an IEP, if you like to have both text and image, my hack for you is just go to a blank page, put your image, put your text, and take a screenshot, and then you can bring it into the super sort as an image. So let's think of some nouns. And I'm just going to keep going with my theme here. So we had pumpkin, skeleton, we had candy. What else did we have? Ghost. So we got some nouns and some proper nouns. Let's see what we had. I think we had, I'm going to go with the movie theme here. Hocus Pocus, Harry Potter, maybe Hogwarts, Halloween Town. Those were my favorite as a kid. If you never watched all the Halloween Town movies, make that a priority for your Halloween marathon this year if you celebrate. All right, so you can keep going. You can see that there is, I still have 6 that I can still do. Now all I'll do is click next. And there are a ton of different pre-made themes that you can go with here. I tend to gravitate towards doing something custom and bringing in a theme that goes with what I'm teaching. Like if I was doing something with science, maybe I'd bring in that background there. And so for time's purpose right now, I'm going to just go with my simple one. And that's it. That's how easy it is to build a game. I can rename it. So we'll do noun and proper noun sort. I can also preview my game. And that is just how simple it is to build one. So you can see again, right answers disappear, correct ones come right back. One call out that I'd like to make about our game-based activities is that there's 3 games that give you that teacher dashboard. Remember when you guys were logged in as students and we did the super sort and I had my teacher dashboard? There are 3 games that give you that teacher dashboard. So those are really good again for doing a check for understanding. And those are going to be match 'em up, rank order, and super sort. Those are the 3 games that give you that teacher dashboard. Again, those are match 'em up, rank order, and super sort. All right, so let's take a look at what else we can do here. So when we did our adjectives, remember we had that brainstorming web. So all I did here was I came right back to my plus button, came over to my graphic organizers, and there are a ton of different ones. Here's that brainstorming web that we used. Bring that right in. And you'll see that it creates a new page for me. So it didn't put it over what I was doing. It just made it a new slide. So this came in locked. So if you're wondering how I made mine a little bit more pretty, what I did was I actually unlocked it. I made it a little smaller. And then I brought in a screenshot of the theme that I had here. It was the little spooky theme. And then I clicked on my arrow. And because I had an image behind it, I brought this to front. So the brainstorming web was in front of my background. And then I made sure that I locked it. And locking is super fun. Merritt just saw something really exciting that I'm going to mention in a second. It's super important that as we're creating activities in Lumio, anything that you don't want your students or that they shouldn't really touch or interact with, we always lock those things. So I'm going to lock it here, and you'll see that now it's not movable. And now let's customize it. So I'll grab my text and I'll say, let's brainstorm Halloween themed adjectives. And from here, of course, you can make it super pretty. Just for time's sake, I'm going to leave it as is. Make it just a little larger. Maybe I want to bold it. And again, remember, anything that our students should not interact with, you're going to hit that arrow and you're going to lock it. Last but not least, all the magic happens right in your magic wand right here. And this is where I can go ahead and make this into an activity in advance. Remember, when we were doing it, I did it on the fly because I like to really give my students all the instructions before they're able to interact with the page. But I can also do that in advance. So I can click this magic wand, and right from here, I can convert it into a whole class whiteboard. And I can rename it from here as well. And that is how easy it is to create a brainstorming web right within here. So we've got our adjectives, we did a brainstorm, we had nouns, and we did a little game. Now for verbs, what did I do for verbs? We had some text on the screen. So all I did was I typed up some sentences. So let's bring in a blank page. And again, I had a theme that I went with. I had my background, but just for time's sake, I'm going to type in the kids went trick-or-treating. Typing is not my thing on a Monday morning, apparently. The kids went trick-or-treating. What else can we do? The ghosts were dancing. And let's think of one more sentence, because then I can go in and show you guys Immersive Reader and how awesome Immersive Reader is. And we'll do another one about the kids. The kids got so much candy. All right, so all I did here was I brought my text nice and large. And then remember, I had that line because I wanted my students to underline those verbs. All I did was I came right over to my gallery, came to my shapes. You'll see in the shapes tab, you've got shapes and lines. I came to my shapes, I grabbed this line. I'm going to move it right over here. And I had for my students some instructions. Drag and drop the line to identify the verbs in each sentence. Make this large for my students. Maybe instructions should be bolded. Again, thinking about the things that I don't want my students to interact with, I'm always going to lock. So come over here, hit my arrow and lock it. And now I've got my line. I'm going to make it a little smaller, make this a little larger. This is something they also shouldn't interact with, so I'll lock that. And now the most important part is this line. We're going to infinitely clone so that they can drag and drop. Hit this arrow, hit infinite clone, and now there's an infinite amount of those in there. I'm going to pop into share screen here because I really quickly want to show you Immersive Reader. I'm going to go to start. Come over to this page here. So now that this is text that is typed onto my screen, you'll see this button right here. It's a little book with audio. That's Immersive Reader. Remember earlier I was saying that in Google Slides, we have slides that are a lot of teacher talk. And not only is our goal here to make our learning more interactive, but also more accessible. And this is one of my favorite features. So I'm going to click on this little icon here. And it finds all the text on the screen for me. And I'm going to click on this, these three sentences here. So from here, there's a lot that we can do. I've got some text preferences, so I can make my text larger, smaller. I can decrease or increase that spacing. If I have any primary teachers in the room, you can change your font. I always change it to Comic Sans because you get that real A, not the fake A, as I like to call it. It's the primary A. If you have any students that have dyslexia, you'll always want to change it to that blue theme because that does make it a little bit easier for their eyes to process. I'm going to skip over my grammar options because I think that's the most exciting part for this particular lesson here. So I'm going to skip over that for a second and save the best for last. Reading preferences, we can always highlight or line focus one line at a time. If there was more text in this paragraph, it would also let me do 3 lines or many lines. You also have a little picture dictionary. So if you click on a word, let's try ghost and see if that works. It gives you a picture of that word. You can listen to just that singular word. You can also translate the entire document by language. So there's hundreds of different languages here. I'm going to come right down here to Spanish. And the reason I always pick Spanish because I think it's really neat. We have 3 different dialects of Spanish in here. So I'm going to click, let's just try Mexico Spanish. And you can do by word or by document. So this is really neat for my students because what they can do is have it read to them in one language. And if they're still not sure, they can switch it back to English and they can toggle between those two. All right, here's really why I brought us to Immersive Reader for this parts of speech lesson. Right over here, we have our grammar options. And take a look, there's a parts of speech section, so we can highlight the different parts of speech right here. And if you're a teacher and you've got an anchor chart in your classroom and your anchor chart verbs are blue, you can always come over here and change the colors. But here's another way for our students to be able to identify those verbs in the sentences. They can take a look here. And then also if they need this text read to them, they can come right to our voice settings. They can change the voice speed as well as the gender. And then if they click play,
ghosts were dancing. The kids got so much candy.
it'll read the sentences to them, highlighting one word at a time. So what a great way to make learning more accessible for our students. All right, so let's come back into editing mode here. So let's quickly go over the things that we did together. So we came into our add button, we imported a Google slide lesson, and once we imported it, we added those interactive pieces. So we started by talking about adjectives. We brought in a graphic organizer to get some collaboration going with our students and to turn a maybe not so accessible verbal discussion and giving our students a different entry point to participate. They can write, type, draw, bring in images, and remember, now they can also record themselves with their responses as well. Coming back to our Google Slides, we came in, we talked about nouns, and then we gamified our learning. So we brought in a game, which was fun for our students, but also for us was a really great way to check for understanding. We did some verbs, we talked about those, and then we practiced some reading, identifying, underlining. We accessed the immersive reader, which helped our students to not only identify the verbs, but also if they needed the reading support or translation support, they were able to get that. And then one other quick thing I'm going to show you is, remember with this interjection where I had you guys drag and drop the little candies into the trick-or-treating pail bucket? I couldn't think last night what those are called. I was like, there has to be a name for those. And that I actually got from our Lumio library. So really quick, I want to show you where I got that idea, and then I kind of want to just customize it. So I'm going to come right over back to my Lumio home screen. And at the top over here, you have this button that says Lumio Library. And if you've not explored the Lumio Library, I encourage this week to take some time and go through here. There are so many great things right in here. And these, the top category here, featured, we always have different ideas here that are relevant to anything that's currently coming up. And so what I did was, let me see if I can find the lesson that I got that idea from. Right here. Here's this parts of speech lesson that I found that I thought was so beautiful, but I wanted to just make a theme for myself. But all I did was right here, parts of speech is popsicle sticks. Anytime you find anything in the Lumio library that you love, you can come right through here. You can sort through, you can see all the pages in it. And then you can save it to your library. And once it's saved in your library, it's really your own copy. So you can change the text, the font, the colors, or if you like the way something looks, but the content is irrelevant, or you like the content, but not the theme, you can totally change it up once it's your own copy in your library. So here's that activity that I had you guys do where I had you move the candies into that pumpkin. This was the idea where I got that idea because I was having kind of like a writer's block. So same idea here, they're just dragging the ice cream into the cooler. So that's where I got that idea. So I encourage you to take a look at the Lumio library and find some things that you might find interesting. All right. I am going to come right over here. And it looks like there might be a question in the chat. Have you tried refreshing your page? Sometimes what I'll notice when I'm in editing mode, it looks a little bit like the left side where you can see all your slides. It doesn't update all the time, but when you click into it, it works. Michelle, can you put for Jill where what is the form? The customer support form to put in maybe a ticket? Do notice that sometimes when you're in editing mode over here, sometimes over here it's not updating, but when you click into a page over here, it should look the right way. But if that's not happening, let's get Jill the ticket form if that's okay. All right, so in case you didn't know, with Lumio, every single month we have a brand new Lumio challenge. And our Lumio challenges are super exciting because you can take a picture of you doing your Lumio challenge and post it across any social media platform. So you can post in our Facebook group, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram. And all you have to do is tag #Lumio Social, as well as tag us at Lumio Social. And then tell us how you're using Lumio in respect to whatever that Lumio challenge is. So this month, our Lumio challenge is, how do you use Lumio for hands-on learning experiences? So you can take a screenshot of one of your Lumio lessons. You can take a picture of Lumio in action in your classroom. Of course, block your students' faces for privacy. But we are very curious how you're using Lumio in your classrooms to do hands-on learning. So make sure you snap a picture and tell us on any social media. And every month, if you participate in our Lumio challenge, you get to be entered to win a gift card. And in the chat box, we do have a link to my file here, as well as where to register for future webinars. Also in the chat, we have a link to these resources. So lots of really great places for you to go to keep learning with Lumio. Highly encourage that we all join our ambassador platform. It's such a great place to go. Here's our ambassador platform. It's a great place to go to always stay in the know with Lumio. So any announcements we have coming up of new features, and there is a really, really exciting new feature that's going to be announced that Marit may have put in our chat box. And our ambassadors always get to know about new features first before anyone else. It's also a really great place to come for questions, and we're a global company, so there's folks from all over the world posting their ideas of how they're using Lumio in their classrooms. In our ambassador platform, we also have ambassador exclusive webinars. We do have one coming up in December. We've got a Jingle and Mingle webinar, and that's going to be exclusive to our ambassadors. And there's also really fun perks to being an ambassador. So you're going to want to make sure that you sign up for that. Also in that link, you'll find the website where you can see all of our future upcoming webinars, as well as recordings of our previous ones. We also have our YouTube channel with a variety of anywhere from a 2-minute to a 40-minute video, quick train videos and ideas of how you can use Lumio, and previously recorded webinars as well. And we also have an academy, and in our academy, there is a brand new course in there. If you are a Lumio lover and you'd like to become a Lumio certified trainer, there is a new course in our academy on how you can become a certified trainer with us, which is super awesome. And with that, I'm going to pass it on over to Michelle.
Great job, Mish. So I will pause here for any questions. There were 2 questions. I couldn't find the customer feedback form quickly, so I told Jill to email me, and then Grace is having some issues with the form, so I had her email me as well. I love how you showed us Google and Lumio today, Mish. I really enjoy creating on Canva and Google. I love their editing tools. So to be able to leverage both the tools together and how they work so well together, I really enjoy it. And I really enjoyed how you showed us the very cool examples for spooky season. And I just want to thank, obviously, people came during classroom time. I see Pamela has to hop out to teach. But with that being said, I dropped in our global communities email. So if anyone has any questions, they can always email us there. And thank you all for joining us today for our Go Lumio webinar. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I want to thank Mish for her insight on how to empower learners using Lumio and Google. Don't forget to complete the survey. Remember, you will receive a follow-up email with the recording of the webinar and the resources to help you on your Lumio journey. We'll see everyone at our next webinar. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.